Hi, Carol. Thank you for calling.
Yep.
This must be so bewildering for you. You are in no danger. You are perfectly safe.
Okay.
Your life is your own. Please know that. Your well-being is of utmost importance to us.
Okay.
If we can help you in any way, please let us know. We can deliver food, medicine, whatever you need. Rest assured, Carol, we will figure out what makes you different.
Figure it out. Why?
So we can fix it. So you can join us.
We are Supermoto, and Supermoto is us, and the Alpha Pro has kindly volunteered to join us with a fresh new set of shoes. It helps that these days there are tons of Supermoto kits out there, and with new finishes, and from Ionic Moto themselves. Okay, get off the phone. You can call them back later. Like Electro & Co. and others, Ionic Moto offers a direct fit Supermoto kit for the Alpha Pro here. It's a 12-inch kit, which I think is appropriate given the proportions of this bike, and it's a mag kit, not a spoked kit. But what really got me interested in these, not that it takes much convincing, is that these also come in white as well. And I've never had white wheels on a bike before, so I'm really curious to see how it looks. This is everything that comes in the Ionic Moto Supermoto kit. We got both wheels, obviously, and I feel super spoiled in this case because the tires are already on the rims. I know that's how everybody converts their bikes to Supermotos, but I've done it twice now where I've hacked it myself and I had to put the rubber on the rim and pop some inner tubes in the process. These wheels also come pre-mounted with brake rotors and the rear chain, so again, it makes it super easy to swap between setups. Fancy a dirt trail in the morning and streets in the afternoon? That can be done. And finally, the kit comes with a set of spacers. Now, I don't know if these are any different from the ones on the bike currently or they're set as spares, but I guess we're gonna find out. These look so good. They have Kenda curves too, by the way. As I mentioned, this new kit is a mag set, meaning that these wheels here are solid one-piece construction as opposed to spoked wheels like this. So why go with one wheel over the other? Honestly, with tiny bikes like this, I don't really think it matters, honestly, just besides personal preference or which one you think looks the best. But each one does have their own specific advantages and disadvantages. Spoked wheels are generally lighter, cheaper, and more flexible. That's why you see almost every dirt bike out there with spokes on them, because it can take the impacts off-road. The downside here is that you're dealing with inner tubes, which means you're popping inner tubes, and I am very familiar with that concept. Either that or you're dealing with sealing all the spoke ends around the rim so it doesn't leak. The mags are solid and sealed, so no inner tubes here. These are more common for the street because they don't have to deal with the kind of impacts that a spoked rim would. However, the downside is that if you bend or crack anything on this rim, it is much harder to fix and generally just requires a full replacement. Spoked rims are multi-piece and built, so if anything goes wrong, you can usually replace a spoke or two and re-true the rim. So I guess it's more favorable to have a spoked rim, but on the other hand, mag wheels look so cool. So let's actually see how cool this looks by slapping it on the bike. So a couple things I'm noting with the install right away. The first thing was that this was a bit of a squeeze to get the brake caliper in place, and I probably should have just taken off the caliper, mount the wheel, and then put it on, so that way it's not rubbing up against the rim, especially since we have a nice clean white one. But more importantly are the spacers. Now these are the two that I took off of the dirt rims, and of course they are not any length of the 4 that we received with the kit. So now it's kind of a guessing game at this point as to which ones fit with this, but there's only so many combinations I can find, so let's just start popping them in there and see what fits. So it turns out when it comes to the spacers in this kit, the front is gonna take the 2 shortest ones, which are the same length, so it doesn't matter which side. And now that everything is placed on here, everything lines up pretty nicely. It's evenly centered. In fact, you can even see the cutout right here that I had to do for the RTR front rim. Not a problem with this one. And also you can see that the brake line is still inside the wheel, although that is pretty close. That might be a little too close for comfort, so I'm probably gonna reroute this to the outside like most every Supermoto, in fact, all of my Supermotos here, so that way it doesn't have any chance of rubbing against that sidewall. Moving right along to the rear here, and there is less guesswork because now we only have 2 spacers to deal with. Now these 2 are different lengths, so it does actually matter which one goes on which side, but in determining that, usually I look at the brake side first because that caliper is pretty fixed. It does need to line up to that perfectly, so whichever one goes on that side, usually it's the shorter one, and then the other one obviously goes on the other side. That makes sense, right? I feel like I was rambling a little bit, but you see what I mean, right?
And let's get straight to feeling it out because this is what matters. Oh, and it feels so good, so smooth on the street. Chef's kiss. Turning on this feels so much more stable. In fact, I'm thinking off the top of my head, how much more stable does this feel compared to the other Supermotos that I have, because there is a big difference in this setup versus the others.
You may have noticed earlier in the differences between spoked versus mags, but there's also a difference in the amount of rubber on each of these two. I mean, clearly. And there's even a difference in size within the Ionic Moto kit itself. The front has a 90/90 and the rear has a 110/70. These two numbers first show how wide the tire is and then how tall the tire is, but the height is actually a percentage of the width. Weird, I know, but what that means is that the front here is 90 millimeters wide and 90% of 90 millimeters tall, or 81 millimeters, and the rear here is 20 millimeters wider and actually 4 millimeters shorter. This gives an overall lower profile and of course the wider rear, and the wider rear is really important because that gives you a bigger contact patch, which helps with stability, it helps put power down, and it helps cornering. It's what you actually want in a Supermoto setup. The RTR on the other hand has an in-between size of 190 for both the front and the rear. It makes the rear just a little bit thinner but much fatter, and it's probably not that noticeable, but that would probably make this ride a little bit more of a plushy, cushy ride and not as aggressive.
I mean, even at slow speeds, this feels pretty stable. I mean, I'm not going that fast, but it's got enough of a contact patch that I'm not twitching all over the place like I just did. But it feels just as good if I come in and out with a little more speed. It definitely feels solid and stable in the turns, even if we hit a speed bump. I did have in the back of my mind that the chassis of this bike, as opposed to the RTR, is a little bit more flexible in my opinion, but on the street it's so smooth, at least this parking lot, it is absolutely amazing to ride on. Of course, you don't feel that because you're not going over bumps and stuff. There's not as much flex to be seen, but it's definitely stiff enough where in the corners you're not feeling like it's sliding out from under you or any hesitation, anything like that. It feels really solid, really planted. Turn-in feels nice and aggressive. Also, no change to the braking, a little squeal there, but it feels just fine. There was no change to this besides the dirt setup. It's the exact same rotor, exact same sizes. Who knows, maybe we can get away with a bigger one in the front, but this is already a 220 millimeter, which I had to upgrade to a 220 on the RTR. Doing a nice job of breaking these things in as well, and you can see I'm using pretty much all of the tire. That's the other benefit to having not only a wide tire, but a low profile tire. You can use every piece of the contact patch here, so corners feel excellent. This thing is looking pretty good, although one thing we have to address is the kickstand. As you can see, it's sitting pretty much bolt upright. It assumes that it has a 17 in the front and a 14. That's what it's used to. Now it's got 12s all the way around, so that kickstand is way too long and it's sitting way too high upright. We probably need to cut that down or find something a little shorter so that way it doesn't accidentally keep going the other way. That would be bad. Such a good time throwing a set of street tires on a dirt bike frame. If you couldn't already tell, I'm a big fan of it. Sorry, Grom, I know you're a little left out here, but you already got street tires from the factory. You're fine. That said, I'm still getting used to the white wheels in this setup. It looks really nice, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it needs to be balanced out a little bit. So to do that, I found a few extras that I'm gonna slap on. Okay, now I'm starting to see this design come to fruition and I'm starting to like it, although I'm a little annoyed because the grips on the website showed that it had orange logos on the side and these ones are black, but whatever. We'll also have to find out how white these grips actually stay with some use, but I think it's coming along nicely. I do want to add some other little white touches here and there, but I'm not 100% sure where those should go and in what form, so let me know your thoughts down below. If you're interested in Supermoto, wondering what it's like, then I highly recommend you pick up a set. I can't lie, once you experience it, it's incredible. You'll feel so much better after joining us.
The best dirt bike isn't one at all. Turns out you need a tire with less sidewall. This Alpha Pro Sumo's absolutely superb. Even if it means I turn into a plurb. Join us! Join us! Thank you, Carol.